Next, it's being described as a historic visit. US President Donald Trump is gearing up to host his Syrian counterpart, Ahmed Al-Sharaa, today. It's the first time a Syrian leader will step foot in the White House in nearly 80 years. It's said to be an extraordinary meeting with the Syrian president, once a former jihadi detained by the US in Iraq 20 years ago. It's the latest push from Al-Sharaa to re-establish Syria's president's presence on the world stage since he toppled dictator Bashar al-Assad nearly a year ago. Well, France 24's Wassim Nasr joins me on set to talk more about this. Good to see you, Wassim. So, as I was describing there, this is very much an unprecedented visit. I know you've been following this very closely, the lead up to this visit. Talk to us about what caught your attention in the lead up.
Actually, as you are saying, it's a very historic visit. We are seeing Syria shifting sides, actually, on the regional equilibrium. But what caught my attention is actually a footage that we're going to see, where we see the Syrian president, Ahmed Al-Sharaa, and his Minister of Foreign Affairs, Asad Shibani, playing basketball with two American military. But those two American military are no other than Admiral Cooper, so the head of the CENTCOM, the Central Command, in the Middle East of the U.S. Army, but also the General Kevin Lambert, which is the head of the coalition against the Islamic State. We are looking here, or we saw, the two highest-ranking U.S. commander in the region playing basketball with the Syrian president and his Minister of Foreign Affairs. So what's interesting about this, that shows us the level of confidence between the two parties. Another picture that caught my attention, this was in Washington, actually, where we saw the Syrian president, here he is, with Representative Brian Mast. Actually, Brian Mast was the head of the International Affairs Commission, which were against lifting the sanctions on Syria without any conditions. We know that Representative Mast is very close to Israel, for example. And we know also that Representative Mast is a veteran. He lost both of his legs and part of his left arm through an explosive device where he was a U.S. Army military working in demining, actually, in Kandahar, Afghanistan. So this is very telling. Both those pictures with active U.S. commanders in the Middle East and with Representative Mast, a veteran that fought in Afghanistan, are very telling regarding the fact that today the U.S. is turning the page of 20 years of counterterrorism as we knew it, actually.
Well, Wassim, looking at that picture, looking at the video of Al-Sharaa playing basketball, it's very easy to look at this visit as indicative that everything is perhaps going well in Syria. But it's a very different story on the ground, isn't it?
It's a very different story on the ground. We are seeing Syria shifting, actually, alliances, and we are seeing the confirmation of the fact that Syria, under Sharaa and even before HTS in Idlib, was fighting, actually, the Islamic State. So operations are being conducted on the ground on a daily basis, and lately more than 60 operations were conducted in preparation of this visit to Washington and the public declaration of Syria joining, actually, the coalition against the Islamic State. But most importantly, too, the Syrians are working on the ground. We saw, for example, the aide of President Sharaa, which goes by the name Jihad Isa Sheikh, going through Turkey. We see his convoy now, maybe in a video, going through Turkey to meet, actually, tribal leaders in Turkey, as we see here in Urfa. But also, so this is very telling because they went through Turkey, out of northern Syria, through Turkey, and enter back in Syria, another area controlled by the government. So, meaning what? Meaning to avoid Kurdish-controlled areas. And they went through Turkey with their arms. You see, so this is very telling about the position that Jihad as a Sheikh is having and about the acceptance and the importance of the role with the tribes. We're going to see footage of him in Ras Al Ain with local tribes, like local Sunni tribes. And why is it important in the wake of the Syria entering the coalition? Because the tribes, this is where also the Islamic State gets its recruits, or at least tries to get its recruit. But also, on the other hand, the tribes are also the main human resources for the Kurdish forces. So on both issues, meaning the negotiations ongoing with Kurdish forces and the fight against the Islamic State, tribes are really important to establish or to stabilize the situation in Syria. So we have international recognition in Washington, but also what counts is stabilization on the ground.
Well, let's talk more about this global anti-ISIS coalition that Sharaa is expected to officially sign on to during this visit. Talk to us more about the coalition. What's it all
Well,
about?
actually, it will be more about real coordination between the new authorities and the CENTCOM and Operation Inherent Resolve, because we know that HTS already had some kind of collaboration with U.S. forces on the ground. We know that U.S. forces on the ground have already collaboration with Kurdish-led forces in northeast Syria. But why coordination and deconfliction actually is needed? Because a few weeks ago, and we have a picture, maybe we see a person was targeted by the U.S. coalition, aided by some Syrian fighters, actually. That was on the 17th of October. And they topped this guy in a town called Ad-Damir, next to Damascus. But at the end of the day, because of lack of coordination between the Americans and Damascus, the guy who was killed actually was infiltrating the Islamic State for the count of Damascus. He was part of the Syrian intelligence actually infiltrating the Islamic State. So the US killed a Syrian asset at the end of the day, which was fighting the Islamic State. So this kind of error can happen if there is no real coordination between the authorities in Damascus and the Inherent Resolve operation. So in order to avoid those kind of mistakes, which also occur in northeast Syria with Kurdish forces, like implementing real coordination is what's on the table now.
Wassim, thank you so much for that piece of analysis. Appreciate that. Thank you.